All right. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. We are so excited that you are here with us. My name is Shanika Peck. I'm the Director of Career Programs over at Foundations Inc. Welcome to our Beyond the Conference webinar series. Today we have our very own Yana List, and we will be getting started shortly. But before I do, as always, we like to give a little background about Foundations Inc. We are a national education nonprofit located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and our mission is to improve the quality of education by building the skills of educators. We work across the school day with after-school programs, schools, districts, and states to create a brighter future for every child every day. If you're interested in learning more about Foundations, you can follow us on social media, and I'll be sure to drop all of those links in the chat box shortly. You are probably joining us because you are already familiar with our signature professional learning experience, the Beyond School Hours Conference, which is held each year in February. In 2025, we will be in Orlando from February 13th to the 16th, and we would love to have you all be our guest. I know the early bird special is pretty much over with, but don't worry, registration will be launching in April. So we are all excited to have you join us today, and hopefully we'll see you in Orlando. Now, I would like to turn it over to Yana Liss, and she'll go ahead and introduce herself. But I do want to give you all a reminder that this webinar is being recorded and will be archived on our website and YouTube so that you can access it later. All right, now I'll go ahead and pass it over to Yana.
Thanks, Shanika, and hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to be talking about a really special resource that we have on our website. But before we do that, I do want to briefly introduce myself. So my name is Yana List, and I am an education specialist here at Foundations. And I've been with Foundations for about 5 years, and I come from a background as a school day, after school, and summer educator. And I'm really passionate about curriculum development and creating resources that are engaging for our students, that really bring them really exciting experiences that develop all sorts of skills in kind of a combined experience. And so, what we're going to be doing today is reviewing one special resource that we have developed, which is the curriculum, and we'll share the link to that. And this is about creating an opportunity to integrate video game design into out of school time. And we're going to be talking in particular about writing character backstories that explain behaviors and enrich the narrative. But everything we're doing today is based around our unit plan. So you want to be a game designer. This is a 100% free curriculum that is available on our website, and I believe Shanika is sharing the link in our chat box. So you can go right to our website and download this unit plan. It is a middle grades unit plan, so approximately 5th through 8th grade, but there are ideas for scaling it up and scaling it down when you have students that are older or younger. So it's really a great resource for really any age group. It includes about 1 month worth of content, so over 30 hours of lesson plans, activities, everything is included in it. And this whole curriculum is designed to be interdisciplinary. So it does focus on kind of that programming piece. So students are building literacy, SEL, and STEAM skills, but it also is giving that really well-rounded education that we know is so important in out of school time, giving kids an opportunity to be really active and engaged in their learning. So if you haven't already, I really encourage you to head to our website and download this curriculum. Shanika shared our website in the chat box if you have not visited our website before. And under downloads, you can easily down this unit plan as well as some other ones. So with that in mind, we're going to be talking a little bit about using this unit plan and be kind of previewing some of the activities that are found in this unit plan. And so what we're going to be doing is really talking about what is a video game before we kind of jump into the unit plan. So the thing to know, especially about modern video games, is they go well beyond kind of the basic code that you would see in kind of a Pac-Man game where it's just one little character moving around the screen. Really modern video games, narrative heavy video games, of course, include the computer code that is the basis of it that makes everything work. But they also have a storyline, a narrative. There's a lot of graphic design, animation involved in creating these video games, as well as audio, which often includes, um, you know, uh, both nowadays a use of AI as well as voice actors who create audio for the characters. So our modern video games, it's really been a modern change of it's not just about you have one very simple task, but it's creating a narrative environment that's really immersive. And if you work with young people, you probably know that a lot of them play video games for a lot of the time that they are not in our programs. So this whole unit plan is about taking something that is already a huge interest for a lot of young people and connecting it both to the careers that are embedded in creating video games and creating that helping students develop skills that are necessary for creating your very own video game. So with that in mind, I do want to highlight some of the skills that students will develop as part of this unit plan. First of all, it is a unit that is really focused on collaboration. Students work in teams. They really have to focus on communication because they all have different roles and responsibilities, and they have to figure out how to work together through all of that. And they also have to do some creative writing because in this unit plan, we really focus on using narrative as part of that curriculum. So they have to write as part of that video game. So have to write really meaningful stories, problem solving. They're going to come across challenges as we all do. There's, of course, quite a lot of programming involved, which is a skill that we know is kind of one of those 21st century skills. A lot of our young people are going to use programming in all different ways as they head out into their careers. So it is a great time to learn as adolescents. I guarantee you it is much easier to learn to program when you are a teenager than when you are in your 30s. I speak from experience. So it is much better for them to start to develop those skills when they're adolescents. And when we're doing that, we are really giving our students an opportunity to immerse themselves in the process of a video game. And I think the easiest way for us to really model that and show how we do that is actually practice some of the activities that come in this modified for a virtual environment. So I hope you will join me in one of the first activities that is part of that unit plan. And to introduce it, we have a short video.
Welcome to the Starship Beyond. We are on a mission to explore deep space, focused on finding new worlds where humans can settle. But for our mission to be a success, every member of our team has to complete their tasks. That's why our mission includes crew members with a variety of essential skills. Unfortunately, when we set off on our travels, an imposter boarded the starship. This imposter's goal is to interrupt our mission, by any means necessary. Can you help us identify the imposter among us, before it is too late?
So, before students create their very own video games, they are first asked to play a video game in real time. So instead of doing it on video, we kind of do it in 3D in person. We're going to modify it a little bit because we are working virtually today. But this is really about
Welcome.
showing them an example of what the video game might look like and showing them really how we crafted a video game, but really as an in-person game. And you might be familiar with the actual video game Among Us, and we turned it into kind of an in-person game. And I'm going to be explaining the rules and we're going to play a little bit of it. But if you have any questions, do feel free to pop them in the chat box. I would love to hear from your feedback. That's one of the difficulties of a webinar is it's a lot of monologuing. So I would love to hear from you in the chat box about your thoughts. If you have attended one of these trainings before and are familiar, if you are thinking about how can you use this, would love to hear from you. So in the Among Us game that we play with both participants when we're doing this training, as well as with students, is that all of our students and all of our participants are assigned a role. And there are 4 character roles that students can take on. They can be um, a crewmate. Crewmates are responsible for helping to really make sure that we are powering our ship. So we need a lot of energy. And I see that your hands are raised. So if you have questions, you should be able to pop them into the Q&A. So please do, and I will make sure to answer those. So sorry for that aside. And so crewmates are all focused on gathering enough energy. We use kind of candies as energy when we play this in person. Well, they need to power our ship. Our engineers are the people who are responsible for managing our communications. As you might know from, every sci-fi movie, a lot of ships need to communicate with each other. So our engineers are tasked with building a cell tower. Then we have scientists who are tasked with identifying the imposters among us and really taking the time to study what's going on in our ship. And we also have the imposters. Now, imposters are the people who snuck onto our ship, and their job is to sabotage. So, imposters, their entire goal is to ruin it for the rest of us, to prevent us from exploring new worlds, and to really just interrupt the efficacy of the other players. And so when we are playing this game, there's a couple of different ways you can assign roles. You can have kids pick them out of a hat. When we play in person, we often ask participants how many years they've been working in OST and assign play based on that. Or you can have students vote on which roles they would like to take. So keeping in mind that the crew members, the engineers, and the scientists are all working together to make our trip a success, and the imposter is doing everything they can to ruin it for the rest of us. So with that in mind, where is our poll? Here we go. So we are going to just have a little poll so I know who's in the room. Choose which of these roles you would like to take on. Crewmates are focused on powering our ship, getting enough energy. Engineers are focused on communications with other ships. Imposters are focused on ruining it for the rest of us. And scientists are focused on identifying who are our imposters. So pick a role you would love to play, and so we'll know the approximate breakdown of our group today. So I'll give you all another moment to vote. Take another second to choose your role. All righty. So we have a lot of imposters today. So the responsibility of imposters is, again, to ruin it for the rest of us. Crewmates are working together to power our ship. Engineers are working to make sure that we are able to communicate with other ships, and our scientists are trying to identify the imposters among us. And so when playing this game in person, students are assigned challenges and they have to try to complete those challenges in a limited period of time. Now, of course, we're playing virtually, so we can't quite do the challenges together. And I know that there's an issue with the chat box, which kind of limits our ability to communicate. And I'm sorry about that. I know Shanika is working hard to get that resolved. But we want to think about what are really the questions that our students might be generating as they are playing this game, the challenges that they are encountering, and what they want to accomplish. So if you are thinking about playing this game with students, I would love to hear, and you can use the Q&A to let me know, how would you introduce this to your students? So would you be thinking about creating this game, implementing this game rather, at the very beginning of the unit? And what kinds of questions would you ask students to get them thinking about how this game connects to video game design? So, for example, one question you might want to ask your students is, how does this compare to video games you've played online or on your computer? So they're playing the game and they take on one of these roles. They're completing the roles. Again, we're playing in person. But we want them, again, to make that connection to playing online or playing on their computer. So ask them, what kind of video games does this remind you of? Oh, yay. Thank you, Shanika, for getting the chat box working. Huge shout out to Shanika. So now you can also use the regular chat box. We're not limited to the Q&A, which is very exciting. Shanika, I really appreciate you. So does this remind you of any other video games? How does this compare to video games? For our kids that have actually played the game Among Us, is it similar? How is it different from playing Among Us online or on your phone? So thinking about asking these kinds of questions, and Shaka, thank you for asking that example. Asking these questions will get kids thinking about how we can connect an in-person game to a game that they're going to be designing themselves. And so you all chose your different roles, and if we were playing in person, you would be trying to complete these challenges. And so what we always want to do when we're playing with these challenges, we always want to help our students make a connection between the challenges that they're completing and the real game that they're going to be developing as part of this unit plan. So with that in mind, I do want to highlight the things that we would be accomplishing, and we want to emphasize to our students about the meaningfulness of that game we played. And because these are things we're going to want them to replicate and to practice in their own video games. So first, I had a setting for our game. We had a little video introducing the fact that we are on the Starship Beyond. And we created a narrative, or I shared with you a narrative. We have a goal that we are trying to accomplish, and there is a conflict because on our ship, we've got some imposters who are trying to get in the way of our ability to achieve those goals. So we are creating a really rich narrative environment where students are excited to participate in. And finally, I've given instructions, and based on those instructions, participants have actions. So that is something that is really important to practice in a video game. Really, all video games is a series of instructions that a character plays out. So I shared the instructions. Your students would be acting out the instructions as shared. And really enriching that narrative is because they all had a role, they all had a goal they wanted to accomplish. And there was some conflict. It's not an easy goal to accomplish. And for any of you that have ever played a video game, you know that there's always challenges, whether it is characters working against you or whether it is just physical barriers that you have to get past to complete a challenge. All of those things are about making the game environment more exciting. It's great if all of your engineers and crewmates can achieve their goals, but without the conflict of an imposter, it might just be too easy to accomplish those goals. So we want to embed conflict in our video game. So as we're thinking about that, I'm going to we're all going to work together about really just one piece of the video game procedure. And the piece I want to focus on really comes from the workflow. Now, the general workflow of the video game designer curriculum is starting with background. So students create a background, a setting for their video game. Then they do some illustration. They're going to do a lot of hand illustration. Then they create their narrative, the actual progress of the story, storyboarding, all of those kinds of pieces. Then they do graphic design, so taking those illustrations and moving them into a programming environment. They do tons and tons of coding. And then they figure out how they're going to market their video game, get users interested. So what I want to highlight about this unit plan is it's a little bit different than just creating a video game through some code, which is something that kids can kind of do on their own. Pick up one of the different online tools you can use to create video games, which are easy and fun. And we will be talking about using one of them, but it's really about creating that enriching learning environment where students are creating a game where there is a lot of narrative. And this is where this unit plan becomes really interdisciplinary because they are doing a lot of writing, they are doing a lot of illustration, they are working on those SEL skills because they have to come to understand their characters. So it is really a unit plan where there's a lot of opportunities to engage with the curriculum and with the video game design process from different perspectives. And it's also a great way to get all of your kids engaged because some of your students will say, well, I'm not interested in video game design. I'm not interested in programming, which it's not going to be for everyone, but giving students a lot of different points of entry based on their interests is a great way to make sure that all of your students engaged, even if they don't see themselves going into a career that involves programming at some point in the future. So with that in mind, we are going to work together and discuss together, and this is where I'm so glad we have the chat box working. We're going to think about character backgrounds. So in video games, in comic books, in any kind of story, really, characters have a background. They have a reason they are doing whatever they're doing in the story. So we will use the example of Superman just as one example, but there's many. And in this unit plan, we give you backgrounds on 5 different characters that students can study. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a little bit of background about the character of Superman. And we are really going to try to think about, and this is where I'm going to ask you to participate in the chat box, who is Superman and why does Superman do what he does? So let's look at this character example of Superman. So I'll just read because I know the text is a little bit small. So here is the very origin of Superman. At a distant planet was destroyed by old age, a scientist placed his infant son within a hastily devised spaceship, launching it towards Earth. Okay. When the vehicle landed on Earth, a passing motorist, discovering the sleeping baby within, turned the child over to an orphanage. And the attendants there, unaware of the child's physical structure, was millions of years advanced of humanity. They at first were shocked when they saw his feats of physical strength. And so he was adopted, we know in the story, we know we've seen movies, we've played the video games. But when the Superman reached maturity, he discovered that he could easily leap the length of a mile, and he could leap over a 20-story building. He could raise enormous weights, run faster than an express train, and nothing less than a bursting shell could penetrate his skin. So Clark, as he was named by his adoptive family, decided he must turn his titanic strength into channels that would benefit mankind. And so he created Superman, who was a champion of the oppressed and was a physical marvel who swore to devote himself to helping those in need. So that is the background of Superman. You might notice in the earliest iteration of Superman, he couldn't actually fly. His powers have evolved over the years. But this is the origin of Superman. So I'd really like us to think about, well, why is Superman doing what he's doing, right? Why? So I have a couple of questions for us. So what makes Superman as a character special? Why is Superman the subject of comic books, video games, movies, TV shows? So I'd love to hear from you in the chat box based on this little comic strip, but also anything you know about Superman, aka Clark Kent. What makes him so special? So I'd love to hear from you in the chat box. What makes him special? I will say the first thing I notice is that Clark Kent decides to commit himself to helping those less fortunate. So one of the things that makes him really special is just his commitment to helping others. But what else makes him really special? His super strength. Yes. Clark coming from really has some special powers that aren't replicated on our planet. What else? Super speed. He understands, oh, Ivan, I love this one. He understands that his strength, speed, and other attitudes give him the opportunity to help others. Yes, exactly. So he really appreciates that he has these special powers and he's not going to keep them to himself. He's going to share them with the world. Uh, so thank you everyone for sharing. So we understand even from this very short comic strip, we understand what makes Superman so special. We also need to think about what is the character's motivation. So from what we've read here, and again, it could be anything else you know about Superman, what is his motivation? What is he trying to accomplish? Jania says keeping others safe. Yes, that's a huge one. So really his dedication is to helping others. Yes, he is really committed to, Sharon, the way these chats are set up is you can share them with me and I can read them out loud, but you can't share with everyone. It's just the way webinars are set up. So I apologize if that wasn't clear. And that's why I'm reading answers out loud. Amy said he wants to help mankind be a safer and better place. Yes, Superman is really focused on helping others, on using his strength, on what makes him special to help those in need. And he definitely recognizes his uniqueness in that he's able to help in ways that others can't. So think about all the times you've seen Superman, of how he really does things. You know, he rescues planes and all of these things that humans just can't do it. So he uses his uniqueness and knowing that he can do something that others can't. And we also want to ask, how does this backstory impact the character now? So we heard a little bit of the backstory of his origin. And again, maybe you've seen Superman movies, you've read the comics, you've played the video games. So what about Superman's background really makes him want to help people? We know that his motivation is to help make our planet a better place. He's got all these special powers. He has a commitment to helping others. What about his background, about his origin, made him want to act in this way? So Ivan shares that he lost his family to an accident. So he is not around anyone who his original family is, right? So his backstory, he knows that his family is gone. And he wants to leverage and he wants to use his own skills to help kind of everybody because he doesn't have his own family. All right. And we also know that maybe you don't know this from here, but in a lot of iterations uh, in the chat box, a lot of iterations of the story, excuse me, I said chat box because I was looking at Shanika's response. We know that really his family, his father actually sent him to our planet to help people. So it's kind of that origin story, it really connects to what his father was hoping for him. We also know that Clark Kent is raised by a really kind family that cares about him. The Kent family really instills kind of the values of caring for others in him, and that becomes part of his origin as well. And you might be wondering, what does this have to do with literacy? Now, a lot of the things that we kind of define as literacy in school has to do with kind of regular books or stories. But the truth is, when students are reading any kind of graphic novels or comic books, they are practicing those same literacy skills. So, literacy skills including vocabulary, including reading, the understanding context, really connecting the narrative. So thinking about how does the past connect to the future. It also really gives them an opportunity to think about what about this structure, what about comic books makes them special, communicates something different than a regular book might. So what is special about seeing the story in pictures as well as in text? So students can practice a lot of literacy skills embedded in comic books, which are often more interesting to them or more exciting to them. It might look more like the literacy that they do at home, while also developing those same skills that students need during the school day. So, a lot of those same literacy skills are going to be practiced when they're reading a comic book background about one of these characters, like Superman, or they are listening to a story with an audiobook. Any of those things are still going to require them to practice a lot of literacy skills. It's just in a different context that's often more approachable and more interesting to students. So, here in this example, we were doing a textual analysis of the source of an example character. So, for our students, they actually then have to create their own character. So, think back, I asked all of you, what kind of character, what character would you like to play in our game Among Us? So, what I would ask you to do is just as part of our discussion, you can pop it in the chat box. I would love for you to think about what brought your character. Did you say you wanted to be a scientist? Did you say you wanted to be a crewmate, an engineer, an imposter? What about your character really made them want to join this trip? Why did your character get on this starship? You were journeying to lands far, far away. That is going to be a challenging journey. What made your character show up and be as on this trip, come go on this exciting adventure? What made your life events and choices shaped your character? How does your character's backstory affect their present behavior? And what is your character's drive? What is really pushing them on to do what they're doing? So, I would love for you to do is to think about these questions. Remember whatever character you chose earlier in this session and let us know. So, what brought your character on the starship? This is where you're enriching the narrative, enriching the game Among Us. Among Us is one of those games that doesn't have a lot of background. And what we can have our students practice is creating a more rich narrative and to really create a kind of environment or learning experience where they really learn about how what we experience makes us act in different ways. So please pop in the chat box You're thinking about your character. So Cindy shared that her character she chose to be a crewmate wants to be on this journey because they want to be a team player and they want to work as part of a team. Oh, Amy shared, I'm guessing Amy chose to be an imposter. My character wants to rule the world, to destroy everything that everyone is trying to create. So sometimes characters want to do bad things. It could be something having to do with their family. It could be something having to do with an early experience. I'll share another time I have played this game with other participants that somebody said that they had a really tortured relationship with their parents who were actually the inventors of this starship, the designers. So they wanted to get on this starship kind of in revenge to their family, which, you know, a lot of people do things because of their families. So that is a totally could be a real way that students or participants respond to that experience. Sharon's character is called Ramona, and Ramona spent years studying to be a scientist, but was constantly rejected. So Ramona was really is now driven by revenge. So that is why Ramona is an imposter. So revenge is a great motivation. um Yvonne's character wants to achieve world peace and is an engineer. So it sounds like Yvonne is looking for other planets to really spread that kind of peaceful message. What other narrative or what other causes do we all have? Give you another minute or two to share. So I can share. To be a I chose to be a scientist, and my character is a scientist because they grew up in a family of scientists, and so they were really inspired by their family members. They have an older sibling who is also on a different starship, not the Starship Beyond, the Starship Explorer. So my character, I didn't really name her, so let's say Yana, became a scientist and got on this starship based on that experience of growing up around scientists and seeing what her older sibling has accomplished. So that is oftentimes that motivator. Janaya chose to be an imposter because her character was wronged in the past and now hurts others to compensate for their past. So we've got a lot of imposters among us, which is kind of a great example. We know from when we watch movies or read books, sometimes the most interesting character is the villain. And again, what students learn from this is characterization. It's a really important part of literacy, understanding who your characters are and why they do what they do. That is really going to help them kind of understand the components of literacy. And this, we did some reading and we did some analyzing of an existing text. Here, you all are writing your own character narrative. So you're writing your own character's story. And that is something that we can kind of take into the next phase and give an opportunity for our students to engage with it in a new way. Really give them an opportunity to be creators, which they don't always have the opportunity to do. There's not always time for students to be doing a lot of writing and doing a lot of kind of creating on their own in the environment. I do also want to share, I shared in the chat box, the character backgrounds. So if you are interested in kind of introducing this activity, if you want to share those character backgrounds, I have shared that in the chat box, so you can take a moment and download that for yourself. I have also shared a copy of the handout that goes with this unit plan. So if you are with the activities that we're doing today, we're only doing a little bit of it because we only have an hour together. But so you can feel free to download those to really apply these in your own environment. And if you don't have time or don't have the interest in doing this whole unit plan with your students, you can just do the character writing workshop in the brief kind of context that we're doing today. And you can make this a character writing workshop that just takes an hour. Just as an example, something to think about for yourselves. We're doing this obviously in a much more abridged format because we're in a virtual environment, but with your own students, they can write really complex, rich character narratives and getting, again, those experiences of writing, which they don't always get to do a lot of, in a way that's really creative and exciting. And I know we're not in a room together, but I can share with you when we do this workshop in person, everyone is always really excited to share their character narratives, and people really get into it. So maybe you're sitting at home and thinking, oh my God, I wish I could have my character actually act out these things. So hopefully you're getting excited about it at home. And that's something I can tell you that always happens in person with both participants and with young people. So that's something that you can take with you and think about, just getting kids engaged in writing in a new way, that kind of creative writing piece that they don't always get a lot of experience with. So hopefully you have crafted a meaningful example of a character. Your character really has something that is driving them, a reason for doing what they do. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of components to this unit plan. We cannot go through all of them because we are very limited in our time. So what we are going to do is we are going to very briefly, just because I want to highlight the STEM component, which a lot of you might have come here for this, is how the coding component of this unit plan works. So the first thing I want to say is that when it comes to coding, when it comes to programming, the way this unit plan is designed, you as the facilitator really don't need to have any kind of background in programming at all. We don't expect that of you. We have a guide to programming, and we have two programs that are two online resources we suggest that you use that are free to use for designing a video game. So you don't have to know anything about video game design to start on this unit plan. Everything is included in the unit plan, is everything is something that you can share and do on your own or work through it with your students. So you can have kind of a brief introduction for yourself today and then develop these skills as you're working with your kids. The one tool, there's, like I mentioned, two tools that we suggest you use, either Tinker or Scratch. And so I'm going to share just a brief promo video, and we'll talk about kind of using these so they don't hopefully seem scary.
Code is all around us. Those who know how to code will shape the careers and innovations of tomorrow. And Tinker's revolutionary approach teaches kids and teens the fundamentals of coding through fun, story-based lessons, all while fostering essential problem-solving and critical thinking skills. Tinker is the easiest way to learn to code. Our unique assessments place your child on a path to success. Learn block coding and progress to real-world programming languages. Our large suite of creativity tools empowers kids to become makers. Whatever your child's passion, they'll find coding projects that inspire. Your child can make their own games, learn to make modifications in Minecraft, create art and music, code real apps, learn about data science, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and so much more. Sit back and watch them become makers of technology. So let's get coding. Your child's future starts today.
Alrighty, oopsie. So I'm going to highlight the tool Scratch, but both of these are great. Both of them are free. Nope, they're all free to use. So you can just join either of those tools and they're both free. Um, Tinker does have some add-ons that you can use, but for educators, it is free, and for schools, it is free. So there are paid add-ons you can add, but they're not required. So there are free versions for educators, free versions. So we wouldn't suggest anything that is paid. So I'm going to highlight Scratch as an example, but Tinker and Scratch are both great for kids and teens. So you can kind of decide which one is a better fit. You can kind of explore them and figure out which one you like best. So with that in mind, I'm going to highlight Scratch, which is a really nice one, especially for students that have absolutely no background in coding. Tinker is one that has some projects that are a little more advanced, so that can be more appropriate for older students or can be more appropriate for students that have experience with programming. But Scratch is really easy because you can pick up and start coding in like 3 minutes, less than, you don't need 3 minutes, 30 seconds. And so I want to show you basically how I started coding in Scratch in less than 2 minutes. So under Explore, I clicked on this tab. And basically the way Scratch works is it gives you a series of motions that you can choose from. And you just take these motions and order them. And it gives you a pre-made character, but your students will create their own characters. I just use the pre-made character for ease of use. And all you do is you order the steps. And this is exactly how programming works when you work in any kind of language. All programming is a series of instructions, and most programming languages are linearly modeled. So it's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. They follow after each other. And that is exactly how Scratch works. This is just a more engaging look compared to what kind of traditional coding looks like, but it is the same thing. And all you do is you have your character go through whatever series of steps. And you can just click play and have the character do this series of steps, and you can monitor and make sure it's doing exactly what you want your character to be doing. So it's really a great opportunity for our students to practice code and do code in an environment where it's really approachable. Any of you who've ever looked at code, it often looks like gibberish if you're not familiar with the language, if you're not familiar with the kind of different formats of different languages. They all have their own conventions. So this is a way to really give kids the introduction to coding in a way that is absolutely really, really clear because it just says exactly what the character is going to do step by step. And so this is something that kids or adults can pick up with absolutely no background. And what they're going to do as part of their video game is they're going to create just a much more complex series of instructions. So it's going to have a lot of instructions. It will probably have multiple characters. And so everything that I did, just, 4 steps that Sprite is going to follow. Sprite is going to take 10 steps, then turn, say something, and then turn again. That's all my character Sprite is going to do as I've set it up. But there are so many different so many different actions that your students can sort or choose from, and that's how they're going to build that video game that's much more complex and has a lot more layers to it. And this is where really the kind of unit plan comes together. And they're going to be working on coding, even though in the workflow we have it near the end. In reality, they're going to be working on coding throughout the process. And it's really just about giving students the opportunity to play around with code, giving students opportunity to really test their code, try it out, make repairs to it's called debugging in programming language. And it's again something that is super interactive. And we add on top what makes the unit plan that we've shared special is that we take kind of this existing tool and enrich it with literacy, SEL, opportunities for collaboration. There's also some math involved in marketing. So we really take that process and kind of enrich it in a way that makes it much more interactive for our students and makes it much more meaningful and shows them how, okay, they're doing this fun video game in this unit plan, but how does that actually connect to real world careers? This is also a unit plan that is very much focused on that kind of career connection, which is something that a lot of us care about and a lot of us want to see in our units because we want our young people to be thinking about the future and how the things that they really enjoy and have fun with are also things that can become their careers if that's something that they see. And one of the things that we encourage them to do is to also really think about how this connects to future careers. We have a section where we encourage you to invite guests. So all of those things are possibilities for your students. And the last small piece, we are a little bit short on time, but the last small piece I want to highlight is the marketing step, because this is again another way to show students kind of that real world connection to video games. Video game design teams. So, for a lot of those modern video games, I believe Minecraft, the original design team, had over 1,000 people working on it. So, it takes a huge team to make these video games a success, including a lot of programmers, but also writers and actors and graphic designers, artists, and also a marketing team because the way part of the way that Minecraft and many of these other video games become really successful is through effective marketing processes and effective marketing approaches. So with that in mind, one of the things that I want to highlight for you, oh, I accidentally turned on captions. Didn't need to do that. Excuse me. One of the things I want to highlight for you is what are the things that our students can learn about marketing in this unit plan. So they have to learn about how do you actually market something. So how do you combine the product that they have created along with thinking about how are they going to price it because video games have to be profitable. There's a huge team that work to make it together. All those people need a salary. Companies need to make money, thinking about how are they going to place this, how are they going to advertise it, and thinking about creative promotion strategies that are really going to make people excited, have people line up at midnight to get the early release of the new video game, all of these pieces. So again, the whole goal of this is first of all, this area of marketing both involves creativity, but I'm going to highlight the price component. So also includes a fair bit of math, but it's also an opportunity for your students to understand that there are a lot of possible careers that they can pursue if they want to be involved in video games, but coding is not something that is, a passion of theirs. So really thinking about the fact that there are a lot of entrances to this. And so one of the things that your students will do is they're going to calculate how much a video game costs. So there's a cost involved in producing a video game, and you have to really do all of the video game work before you get any kind of financial reward from it. So your participants or your students will try to estimate how much it costs them to create their video game. And the way they do that is they take the number of participants with the average salaries of those careers in the real world and calculate how much it actually costs them by the number of hours that they spent on this curriculum and on this video game. How much did it actually cost them to create the video game? And so they have to try to calculate how much it costs them to create the video game, how much are they going to sell it for, and then decide how much they're going to sell it for, who they're going to market it to. So this approach really helps them connect the kind of financial pieces of video games, but this connects to any kind of marketing, whether it's a video game or some other form of marketing. It really includes creativity, coming up with really exciting and really creative marketing ideas, but also making sure that there's a profit involved. So this is kind of the last part of the curriculum that takes you through and gives your students an opportunity to engage. So we have had a very brief introduction to this unit plan today. The QR code on your screen again takes you to the link where you can download this completely free curriculum. So we would love for you to download it. And there is also a QR code in the curriculum for you to give us feedback. So if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. So if you are thinking video game design is probably right for my students, the next steps are going to be to review the curriculum for yourself, recruit special guests. So that's something that we encourage you to have, is special guests from the video game design industry, for students to meet people who actually work in this field, get to know what careers look like, get to know and get yourself familiar with that programming environment. Like I showed you, Scratch just takes a few seconds to get familiar with. And then finally, you are ready to implement this unit plan. That's all it takes, and we have prepared everything for you. So hopefully this is something that you are going to be excited to implement with your students. Um, Shanika has shared in the chat box, we have a feedback form. I would love to hear from you about what you learned, whether there's anything we can do to continue to always improve. It's something we would love to hear from you. So I hope you enjoyed this webinar, this brief introduction to our video game design curriculum, and I hope that this will make its way to your locations or your sites in the coming weeks and months. So Shanika, thank you so much for acting as our tech consultant. We'd love to hear from you. You can always email me at ylist@foundationsinc.org. And Shanika, thanks for coming. We have just about 2 minutes left. If you have any questions, please do feel free to let us know.
Thank you so much, Yana. I always appreciate attending one of these game designer sessions. It's always informative. I'm also thinking about different ways we can use this for our STEM activities. So I know a lot of programs are already implementing some kind of activity or curriculum around those topics. I do want to remind everyone that this webinar is recorded and will be shared through our website and also on our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to take another look, you'll have access there. Once you've completed our feedback form, you will receive a certificate of attendance within a week, especially if you are here live with us. Again, if it's a recording, you won't have that opportunity, but please go ahead and fill out that feedback form. Let us know how this webinar went. Again, thank you, Yana, so much for walking us through an awesome resource that we have available to everyone here. And hopefully you all will be back with us for our next session. But thank you all for a wonderful day. Thank you for participating. My apologies again for the chat box. We got it working, right? You were all ready to participate, and we absolutely enjoy that. So again, we'll sit tight for another minute or so, just in case you have any questions or any follow-up comments that you would like to share with Yana or myself. So go ahead and, share those questions, but definitely, again, please share your feedback using our feedback form. And then, of course, we're happy that you were able to join us today. So thank you all.
Thanks, Shanika. It was great to be with you as always, especially virtually, because we haven't seen each other in person in a long time. I've been doing a lot of traveling and haven't been in the office since, I don't know, beginning of October.
This has been a busy month.
It's
Busy.
been a busy, busy month.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Again, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time for our next webinar. All right. And again, don't forget our recording will be available on our website and our YouTube. So sit tight. I'm going to answer your question, Doreen. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.